The President has, in the last short while, signed into law the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill. Paul-Michael Keichel is an attorney with the law firm Cullinan Associates and deals, amongst other things, I'm sure, with cannabis-related legal matters. Paul-Michael, good afternoon.
Good to be back with you. Good afternoon to you and your listeners, John.
How does the signing of the bill change the situation?
Well, it really, for the time being, codifies a regime that's actually persisted since 2018 when the Prince judgment came to pass. That's that famous judgment of the Constitutional Court. It just provides everybody with a little bit more certainty as to what you can and can't do. And after this, it won't really be an excuse to say, oh, but I didn't understand, because it's all there for everybody to read in the Act.
How detailed is it? Does it clear up the issues like, can I smoke a joint on the balcony of my flat in a sectional title complex?
John, it's not that specific, but what it does is it certainly invokes existing concepts such as nuisance or neighbor law, which says that you are permitted to smoke in a private space, which ordinarily would be deemed to be your balcony in a sectional title complex. But in this instance, it says that you must do it far enough away from people or in an enclosed enough space that you're not creating a nuisance with your smoke for other people. So notionally, I suppose if your direct neighbors consented to it, you wouldn't find yourself in trouble. But if you've got cannabis unsympathetic neighbors, then you could find yourself in trouble with the law.
I mean, I walked past a car the other day and the driver was having a joint behind the wheel. It had stopped at the side of the road and was having a joint. I'm not going to protest or complain or report that, but I presume that would also be legal.
Yeah, that would certainly be illegal, not only because of an infringement of the Private Purposes Act, because you were exposed to that smoke without having consented, but you would also then fall foul of the National Road Traffic Act, because, of course, you can't be behind the wheel of a car when you are intoxicated with cannabis.
And the issue of how, if you were not in possession of cannabis plants before the judgment, can you buy seeds? Can you buy plants? What's the position of grower clubs? Is that all clarified by the signed bill?
Well, the position of private grow clubs has not been clarified. We are still optimistic that the regulations, which will follow this bill, are going to clarify that issue. But yes, I would say that the issue of how you get your hands on cannabis absent somebody willing to donate that to you has been clarified. And that clarification comes in the form of the definition of cannabis. They've now narrowly defined cannabis, far more narrowly than before, as only being the fruiting and flowering tops and the products made therefrom. So that is the mature female cannabis plant, the fruiting and flowering top, and that's the psychoactive component. So given that that is now the only thing that is defined as cannabis and the dealing in of which is prohibited unless you have a license or permit, notionally you can sell seeds because that's immature. And you could sell, for that matter, immature cannabis plants that have not yet gone to flower.
Paul-Michael, I'm not a cannabis smoker, never have been, never will be. So I might be missing some questions which have been around in the minds of people who do enjoy an occasional or even a regular joint. So what perhaps are some of the other things that clear up questions that people might have had?
Well, I suppose a big question that remains that hasn't been cleared up are what are going to be these upper limits, because a lot of the objections to the previous draft of the Private Purposes Bill were that the upper limits, above which you would be deemed a criminal, were, according to very many people, too low. And so what Parliament has done in this iteration that's now been signed into law is they say, well, you will be a criminal if you possess or cultivate more than what we say is the required limit, but they're leaving what that upper limit is to regulations. So that's a very important thing. So we're actually in a I suppose, a little bit of no man's land here because there are no upper limits. So for the time being, nobody can arrest you for or for possessing or cultivating too much cannabis, but there will still be a time when that will be the case. And I suppose another very, very important thing, and this is something that people have been holding their breath for, is that cannabis has now been removed from the Drugs and Drugs Trafficking Act. So this is the only act other than the Medicines Act that regulates cannabis. But insofar as Section 4.1 says that you are a criminal if you deal in cannabis, Section 1.2 says that you're not a criminal in terms of this act if you have a license or a permit in terms of another act of parliament. So that's a very big thing, because what it foreshadows is an intention by our government to start iteratively creating a legal regime for the trade in recreational cannabis, which will be a first in South Africa, certainly, but for that matter, a first in Africa.
If I'm stopped at a police roadblock and they look in the boot of my car and I've got 5 kilograms of cannabis packed into bankies, am I going to be arrested and charged?
Well, it's tucked into bankies, so it would always be the circumstances. They're probably going to argue that surrounding evidence, apart from the fact that 5 kilos is probably too much for you to claim that you were going to consume that evening, the fact that it was tucked into bankies and had a brand sticker on it or something like that, all of these surrounding circumstances are probably going to have the prosecutors at least decide that they're going to argue that you were dealing in that cannabis. So if you are legitimately possessing personal and private cannabis and don't want to find yourself in trouble with the law, then I suppose the general advice is don't be stupid about it.
Always good advice in all sectors of life. Don't be stupid. Paul-Michael Keichel, thanks very much indeed, an attorney with Cullinan Associates.